Oh my goodness. Thank you, Deb. I've been an actress in relationships at times. Oh yeah, I'm gonna act my way right on out of this one. I'd act my way into it, have to act my way on out of it. Anyway, thank you so much, Teresa. It's good to see you. And Ollie, thank you for asking me to speak. It's nice to see some old friends here, and I'm looking forward to getting to know my new friends, which are actually my tribe, my family. Thank you. Um, my name is Hilary Roberts, and I'm an alcoholic. I've been sober since May 9th of 1997, and I'm very grateful for that. I have a sponsor. Her name is Polly P. And she has a sponsor, and her sponsor has a sponsor, and they're all busy in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. My home group is the Monday night, 6 p.m. Zoom co-ed Big Book Study. If you need information for that, I have it. When I'm in Dallas, I go to the Chicago group on Wednesday nights, and when I'm in Southern California, I go to the Canyon Club. So, and I go to a lot of other meetings too as I travel around and do stuff. But anyway, I am. When I came to you, I was an angry woman. I had been in and out of the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous for 13 years. I had never finished the 12 steps, and I had lost my singing voice, and I was 14 and a half when I took my first drink, and the first drink I took was about 8, 9 shots of tequila. And it was some big girls introduced tequila to me, and I had an awakening from the Holy Spigot. And my new name became Distillery. So it was like I was off to the races. I was never a normal drinker. When I had that first time sense of ease and comfort that came at once after those 8, 9 shots, I went from this insecure, pale, red-headed, freckle-faced girl to with just my brain going crazy and an anxiety cannon blast inside my gut. Always afraid of what you're thinking. It's never good. I know what you're thinking about me. It's not good because I didn't think I was good. I felt so unlovable. I had fear about when his dad gonna rage out again, when is mom going to leave us again? Now, please understand, if you're new in the fellowship, that did not cause me to be an alcoholic. There's many people that have suffered some of the things I've been through, and when they take a drink, it doesn't do for them what it does for me. They take a drink, they probably have a half a glass of wine, and they're like, oh, I'm starting to feel it. Do not understand those people. Then there's the people I wanted to be like. They have a few, and they're like, woo, I'm feeling it. Let's stop now. That's the drinker I wanted to be. I wanted to kind of feel it, take the edge off. But I always went off the edge. I went off the cliff and went splat on the ground every time. And, but 14 and a half, took that first drink, 15, I was put into treatment, if that tells you anything. And I thought I was too young, too cute, and too smart for this deal. And 5 treatment centers later, 8 detoxes later, in and out of hospitals and jails later, and ruining not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 major record deals. I finally came to you. I actually was 12-stepped by a woman that I worked in the strip bars with. I used to tell her that she needed to control her drinking. And I worked in those clubs when I had to pay off debts and I needed to build my cash up again. And I told her, you need to wait till the end of your shift. And she would not do it. And she'd pass out in the corner, wouldn't make a lot of money. And, but here's the girl that got fired from 3 of those places because I couldn't show up. And one day I walk into that club and she looks at me with these bright eyes. And I said, girl, what's with you? And she said, well, I've got 6 months sober in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I said, wow, but how? You work here. See, I worked every other job trying to get sober. Don't let me finish the steps or anything. Don't let me call 3 women a day like my sponsor told me. Don't let me do all the things that are suggested. Because see, I would almost do everything, but then I'd call after I drank. I wish there was a 0.5 step. I'd call after I drank. So wish the 0.5 step was pick up the phone before you drink. You feel like drinking? Call, call, call. Get in the car, get in the car. So I was shocked but interested. I wanted it to be sober. You know, I would quit that job and I'd go work in doctors' offices and I'd go paint houses and I would work at the organic restaurants because I'm gonna eat organic food. That's gonna get me sober. I mean, just like in More About Alcoholism, I tried everything. Take a trip, don't take a trip, swear off, don't drink it this time, don't do that. But it always got me. It always got me. It always came back to I'm just gonna have two. And that two would turn into too much every time, just about. So, step 11. Step 11. I'm going to read this one paragraph, not that you haven't been read to enough today, but this is one of the most beautiful paragraphs in the 12 and 12 on page 98. It says, there is a direct linkage among self-examination, meditation, and prayer. Taken separately, these practices can bring much relief and benefit, but when they are logically related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. Now and then we may be granted a glimpse of that ultimate reality, which is God's kingdom, and we will be comforted and assured that our own destiny in that realm will be secure for so long as we try, however falteringly, to find and do the will of our own Creator. That is a beautiful paragraph. It tells me so many things. My self-examination, where does that come in? For me, it came by starting really at step 1, where my sponsor had me start writing. But see, I knew I was an alcoholic, but she had me write. The difference is that she asked me, I knew the big book backward and forward, but I couldn't stay sober. I had a head full of big book and a belly full of booze. I used to do the Joe and Charlie tapes and I'd fire off at everybody. You know, it was always just a fire back at them. And I remember those old timers would tell me, honey, I'd spilt more than you drank. And I'd cry. And then one of my friends one time said, why don't you just tell him this? And so I started telling him, if you hadn't spilled so much, you might have gotten here sooner. And, and it just, it was interesting. And I'm sure they looked at me crazy because I was underage when I was going to some meetings and roller skating to meetings and just wearing my booty shorts and all that stuff. So that examination came when I had to look at my powerlessness and look at the unmanageability and really look at it, not just see it with my eyeballs, but really relate to what this means to my innermost self, that I'm an alcoholic. Step 2 was my concept to God was I didn't have a good one. I had people that made me quit that job, and then I'd fire them and go back, and I'd get in the inventory. I'd drink at them or drink at me. I mean, just drink at God, whatever. And then the furthest I ever got was the 8th step. And then I was asked to make amends to my dad, which I'm like, I will never do that. And there is no hell like being a relapse queen in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous for that. And I used to go to all the A's because when I felt like you were tired of me in one A, I'd go to the other A's, So that's self-examination. So my concept to God was that he was a maniacal marionette and I'm his marionette, and he's like this puppet master, and he's just, I'm going to give you this great singing voice, but you're going to get, sexually tortured and abused starting at age 3 and by different perpetrators. And later on, you're going to get trafficked. And later on, you're going to get raped and sodomized, which is going to cause you to have all kinds of hell going on with your body and the surgeries and all of this. So I was pretty mad. Your mom's going to leave you. Your dad's going to rage. You're going to leave school after the 8th grade, barely making it through the 8th grade. You're going to repeat the 8th grade. You're going to be humiliated. All these things that happened to me. And if you had a life like mine, you drink too. That's how I felt. If you had a life like mine, I was not protected. My parents loved me to the best of their ability. I believe that, but I was unprotected, and lots of bad things happened to a little girl that shouldn't have happened, to a little girl, adolescent, teenager. And even later on, after being trafficked, when I thought I wanted to marry one man, have kids, have grandkids, and then have us die on the same day. But after that, after already when you're sexually abused, you think there's something wrong with you. How did I cause this? But once the trafficking had happened, then it was like, who's going to love me now? This is all I'm worth. I will never be able to get past this. I can never be washed clean of this. And it was hell on earth. So my sponsor asked me to write down I wrote down my concept of God, which I told you was everything. And she said, well, I want you to get on your knees and pray to the God of your misunderstanding and thank it at night. And I said, do I have to call it God? She said, no, you can call it whatever you want. Just start talking to it. So I called it MFSOB. And that's what I called it. And I went to the meetings and I would pray with 2 fingers in the air, morning and night. She told me I could call 3 women a day and ask them how they stayed sober today. And that was the only question I could ask. I could go to the meeting after the meeting, which was at the restaurants and coffee shops. And that was what I was to do. And then she told me I could only highlight 2 paragraphs out of the big book and ask myself how this relates to me and how am I like this, and read 1 page a day in the certain step that we were in the 12 and 12. And then go back and start over again. She would have me do it like 3 times to really get it in here. So when I went to that step 3, it was like, she said, Hilary, if you could have any concept of God, what would it be? And I said, I want to feel the nearness of my Creator. I want to know what it's like to take a shower and feel clean because I can take 20 and I feel dirty. I want to know what it's like to be able to look in the mirror and not stand the creature looking back at me that is a piece of garbage. And I can barely put on my mascara to go to work. I want to know what it's like to laugh from my gut like you guys do. I want to know what it's like to be a grateful alcoholic, because every time you guys say that, I want to just scream. And even worse than that is, acceptance. I just would want to run out of the meetings on acceptance. I said, I want to be able to go outside and hear the birds and see the butterflies and feel like I have the secret to life. But just like you, sponsor, I want to have the peace in my own skin like you have. I want to have the peace inside me. The big book calls it peace that passes all understanding. I would watch people with cancer or their kids would get killed and they would come in the meetings, and I can say when the kids died, they would just cry their way through the meetings, but they didn't drink or kill themselves, which was really amazing to me. That blew my mind, but they didn't do that. They cried their way through it. I saw people that got sick and got cancer and walked through it and wanted to help people, and they just wanted to die sober. Wow, what's that? She said, that's beautiful. Now we're going to get to doing the business. So we had to do that whole 4th step, and that's that self-examination, right? That's me, my sponsor, and later on with a big bag of M&Ms with God and my sponsor, right? On the 5th step. And I had to share all the stuff, everything I was angry at. And she told me in that 4th column, I didn't set the ball rolling with all the abuse that happened to me, that it wasn't my fault. I remember shutting the big book closed because it said, did not we set the ball rolling? And I'm like, no, I didn't. 2 fingers in the air to this God I hated and out to the bars. And she said, but every time you go back in that place, you're cutting on your soul. She said, but I know if you don't drink, you don't kill yourself. And you don't commit suicide or homicide, and if God doesn't want you in that club, you won't be in that club. And I remember the fears and the sexual inventory that was so shameful for me to share with my sponsor. But see, these steps take us up to the step 11, and that's where I'm going with this, okay? Because my first concept of God was when I did my first 12-step, call it 30 days sober, and walking that gal in there. And you guys looked at me with pride, where you would get up out of the meetings because I was cursing like a sailor. and just going off. But you looked at me and you pat me on the back and you're like, good job. And I wanted to have more of that. I wanted more of not feeling like a scumbag and helping an alcoholic shut my mind up for just a little while so I could breathe. Going to a meeting, I could at least cry it out at the meetings. I could at least cry it out because I couldn't stand how I felt inside myself. But I'm sitting there and I'm doing that inventory, and my sponsor's writing down all the stuff, all the amends I'm to make, and I'm telling her all the dirtiest things, everything. Only some of it was just faces. And she told me, she said, baby, I'm so sorry for the things that you've been through. And she said that should have never happened to a little girl, and to the other things as a teenager. And she said, I am here for you. And we will get through this together. That's the first spiritual awakening, actually, is we, the first word in the first step. I got to get out of me and start with the we. And if I got to stop looking at the differences with you guys. When I was done with that, she had me go home for an hour and do the quiet and make sure I did the first 5 proposals, which are the first 5 steps, correctly. Then I had to do 6 and 7. And I love that prayer. I love the 7-step prayer. That God, I pray that you take all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. She said, you can't fix your defects. You're going to have to just keep praying. And just like you got to get sober, because I used to pray, I used to read my Bible, my big book, and I'd cry. I just couldn't get sober. I'd beg God. Why? Sometimes he is so slow, so slow. And then she said to me, she says, okay, I have a list of people you're going to make amends to. And she said, some of the things you're not going to like, the things you're not going to like is that for the people that have abused you, you're going to have to pray for them. And she had told me that when we did my 5th step. She also told me that, that I might have to get outside help for some of that stuff, which I eventually had to get a lot of outside help at 6 years sober, because I was still having nightmares every single night of being attacked in the middle of the night. It was awful. And she told me, you're going to need to make amends to your dad for stealing the car from them and these other things. No matter what they've done, this is your inventory. As much as I wish I could take this from you. She's like, you need to pray for the willingness to be willing. We just don't say no, never. You can say, I can't do this yet, but we're going to pray for the willingness to be willing. And we did. And I ended up going around and making amends. And my dad added a whole lot to it, including calling me a psychopath and all kinds of other stuff. But I left there and I called her and I was just like, yay, I did it. And I started making financial amends. It took me 10 years to pay off all of my debts. I couldn't even get a checking account when I came to you guys. And I made amends to my mom for calling her all the names I did and punching her when I was 13 and stealing from her. And I just really cleaned a lot of things up. And as I'm doing this, I can start to look the world in the eye. I can start to look the world in the eye. My sponsor said to me, I remember I was almost 2 years sober, and my sponsor, my voice wouldn't come back. And my sponsor said, why don't you ask God to bring your voice back if it's his will? And I'm like, ugh. God. Everything you say is God. And she's like, yep. And our deal was I didn't have to like it. I just got to do it. So I was like, about my voice. And 3 months later, as the prayer, please bring my voice back if it's your will. But 3 months later, all of a sudden my voice started coming back. And I had done rounds of steroids and speech therapy. They didn't want to do surgery because it could have destroyed my voice for life. And I just, I was one of those types that I didn't have a sudden epiphany about this power greater than ourselves. I was one of those where it says slowly. That was me. And and then, in the middle of my steps, I started sponsoring women and started taking them through the steps. And boy, did that give me purpose. Boy, did that. It talks about when sex is troublesome, we throw ourselves the harder into helping others. And for me, sex was a commodity. It was something to be endured. And it was something to leave your body during the act of. It was to keep the boyfriend or get the paycheck or completely turn it off for years at a time, which I would do. I despised and loathed it, or I used it lightly and selfishly. Like, I went to those extremes. And because I needed an overhauling there. And I really had a lot going on. So, and then I started doing the 10 steps. So I was current. And then my sponsor said, I want you to start in step 11. I want you to start picking, she'd already had me doing some prayers, even though I was still calling him the names as I prayed. I would still do, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I'm still doing these prayers around cussing him out, right? And so I'm doing the self-examination. And then in the meditation and prayer that happens in the 11th step, how does this work? Well, I'm already praying because I'm already praying to this power greater than myself. And as I'm going along in these steps, in step 3, when we did step 4, she had me write at the top of each page, God, please show me the truth. I had to write it just like that. So it became in my journals. I noticed in the past, I started writing Dear Blank. I stopped calling him names in that 3rd to 4th step. Then step 6 and 7, I started calling him Dear HP in my journals. And in steps 8 and 9, what happened was I started calling him Dear God. And then we get to step 11, and I started calling him Lord and Heavenly Father. And what helped me with this was the St. Francis Prayer of Assisi. And it's a beautiful, beautiful prayer. And I loved the fact that he loved animals. So that was a plus, whatever it takes. And I remember I used to hate reading in the big book where it said, be sure to see where religious people are right. I'm like, ugh, because one of my abusers was the music minister in the church. And my grandmother was the epitome of love. She played the organ at the church. It didn't matter what your background was, what you believed in, what you didn't. She was kind and loving to all, to everyone. Now, her sister, on the other hand, would beat you over the skull with her Bible. And I love my aunt, my great aunt, and she's calmed down a lot because she used to say, wash your sins in the blood of Jesus. I'm like, oh my, that sounds like a horror show. Stop that right now. I can't take it. It's awful. But yeah, it was, and telling me, am I believing in the true God and all this? And I'm like, and then you guys are telling me we're all inclusive, not exclusive. We're all inclusive here. And I love that about Alcoholics Anonymous because, see, no matter where you are with this, hey, it can be Carl Sagan's cosmos. As long as it's not you, that's the higher power, let it be something else. Let it be the mighty atom. Let it be whatever, you need it to be. They have this thing that we saw when we were out of town for this beautiful couples retreat. And we got to see in this beautiful telescope for the stars, there's a star nursery where stars are being born every second. Stars are being born, and they call it the star nursery. Wow. So anyway, I check my time here. Okay, we're doing okay. So I'm going to do something, a little fun thing that I've never done before, if y'all don't mind. I do it with different areas of the big book, and I just love doing this in places of our literature. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love. How do I do that? I take the 12 steps, I go through them, and I start praying for those I hate. I start praying for those, and I'll tell you a little story that's going on right now. I'm getting married in September. And my dad, the rager, I have kept trying to have a relationship with him, and things would be a little calm for a while, but then he'd come off and do something. And I don't know, I was speaking in Sacramento a few weeks ago, and my little brother came to hear me, and it was an honor because he was 5 when they opened the door and the police were there because I'd been gone for 3 days, and they found me, and it was a mess. And he doesn't remember it, thank God. But that my father and stepmother and I had dinner together, and I said, "Hey, you want to see my wedding dress?" And they're like, "Sure." And my dad takes a look at it and he says, "Don't you think it would have been more appropriate for you to pick a color other than white?" And I'm like, and my thing was, is I had a response that was like I did as a kid, where I'm like, made a joke about it. But then later on, I realized what he was saying to me. And I have spent many years doing these, realizing that I've been, as my little brother put it, being around a rabid dog praying I won't get bit. And I just don't want to do it anymore. But what am I doing? That, and it took me down. I even got sick. Later, I got sick. I had, I broke out and hives. All this stuff happened. My food got a little crazy. Now, I used to be anorexic and bulimic, but that's not what, I just overate a little bit too much. So it wasn't too nothing crazy like years ago. And by the way, if you're struggling with that, nobody's going to pull you over for eating too many Twinkies. Okay. So that can be worked out in the program too. Handle the alcohol and drugs, and the rest will take care of itself over time. I can attest to that. But I made a decision that I don't want him at my wedding. I don't, and I'm doing, but what else am I doing? I double down in my recovery. I already go to tons of meetings. I go to conferences, I speak at, and I go to hear other people talk, and all kinds of stuff. But this is my program. So I'm working on an inventory around my dad right now, again, at 25 years, because I have alcoholism, not alcoholism, and I am responsible for my recovery. I can't change him. And I was mad at myself for that I went in yet again. And you know what? God doesn't want me beating myself up either. God doesn't want me doing that. So what am I doing? I'm writing everything my sponsor's telling me to write. And I'm praying for him. I've used some profanity, I'm not going to lie, but I am praying for him. More will be revealed, but I know that God doesn't want me to be abused. And I know I deserve to wear white. I'm getting married for the first time. So what am I doing to not bring hatred? I am not doing some stuff I'd really like to do right now. And I'm praying. And I do that through the steps. That where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness. I'm not there yet with this situation, but I know I'll be. I can tell you that years ago, one of the men that abused me, I ended up forgiving him face to face, and it was not planned. And I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm not here to trigger anybody out, but I can tell you that it wasn't planned. I was still angry, and I saw where he lived. And I thought, what if my friend is there? I was in my 40s. Why in the world would my friend live there? And he came out that side door. And when he found out my name, he said, "You must have heard a long time for what I did to you." And this is a man that had molested 3 12-year-old girls and got a year probation. And the state of Colorado sent my mom $2.99 restitution. And so, yeah, see, if you had what happened to you, you drink like me too. But what happened is I looked at him and I said, "I forgive you." And he goes on and on about what a piece of garbage he had been. And I hugged him and I said, "God forgives you, and so do I." That was not of me. In our big book, it talks about our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. That's my fear, my resentment, my worry, my self-pity, all of the things that are listed in our books. And we talked for an hour after that. I found out they watched him for 20 years. He had lost custody of his daughter until she reached out to him 4 years before I had gotten there. He offered to pay for any therapy I needed, which my father always would say he couldn't afford it, which he had trust funds, and it was a long story. And I walked out of there and I called Polly, and Polly said, "Baby, you're free, aren't you?" I said, "Polly, I'm free." And see, I know that the same God that did that for me is the same God that will heal this last incident. I've forgiven my God for saying, my God, I've forgiven my dad for saying so many and doing so many hurtful things. But what I realized is I can't go get in the cage with the tiger. I can't get in the cage with the tiger that's hungry. It's like that story with the scorpion and the tortoise. Please, the scorpion's telling the tortoise, "Please take me across the river." "No, no, you'll sting me, you'll kill me, and we'll both die." "No, no, no, I won't. I promise, I promise, I promise." And after a few convincings of that, they're going across halfway across the river. Scorpion stings the tortoise. He says, "My God, why did you do that?" He goes, "Well, it's just in my nature. My dad can't help himself for whatever reason, and that's okay. But guess what? The beauty is, I know my worth today." So it says here, but I'm going to get to that place of forgiveness on this because I forget, and the reason I can recognize my worth is because I've forgiven me for a lot. I forgive that precious girl that went through all the things she did. She couldn't help it. Just like Chuck C has in his book, A New Pair of Glasses, people are doing the best they can. If they could do better, they would do better. And I'm going to get back to that place with my dad. I will, but I won't let him too close. All right. That where there is discord, I may bring harmony. I really try to do that today. By removing all of the crappy things I think about me and you and everything else, I'm able to live in that happy, joyous, and free state most of the time. Because I've taken these 12 steps. And because I have a relationship with God. And the other way I do it is every morning I pray and meditate. I got to get plugged into that power that can guide me. And also helping my fellow alcoholic. Boy, I know I'm going to stay sober doing that. It tells me in my book, nothing so ensures immunity from drinking than me doing that. As long as, and I have to just make sure my own house is in order. That where there is error, I may bring truth. I used to lie about my age all the time because I was in the music business. Well, I still am in the music business, but I would lie. And I was told at 25, I was too old for the business. And some amazing things happened at 49 and 50 in the record industry for me. And that was because some friends of mine had coaxed me to say, "You're not too old, baby. It's not too late and you can do this." And I went for it. And some amazing things happened. And you know what? But after I had open heart surgery at 14 years of sobriety, and I had a 50% chance of surviving. And when I survived that, I had a burning bush experience. I haven't had one since, and not prior to that. But I can tell you what happened for me is like I was no longer ashamed of my age. I am 54. I turned 54 March 1st. Thank you, God. And I'm enjoying, I'm going to party the whole month of March. You can believe that. Happy birthday to me. No, but really, I'm that was like the show tune voice, it's like but I do celebrate me today. I wouldn't celebrate my birthday because I was so free. I felt old at 18. I felt old from 18 up to 40. 41 until I let myself off the hook. Oh God, to let him find out how old I am. Dear Lord, God is either everything or he's nothing. And he opened doors no man can shut with that music business. But anyway, it says, so today I make sure I tell the truth. If I catch myself saying something, I got to clean it up. And usually it's over something stupid. Real stupid. And I can't even remember anything right now, but I love not looking behind my back. I'm not juggling men. I'm not juggling, weird financial stuff. I'm not acting out, trafficking myself. I'm not doing anything that's going to cause for anybody to come look me up. If somebody says, "I heard that you did this," and I did it, I'm going to be like, well, I did. Yes, I was on the streets at 16. Yes, I was. I heard you worked in strip clubs. Well, I did that too. Yes, I did. I'm really sad for that girl that felt that's all she was worth. I heard you lied about your age for years. Yes, I did. I was very insecure. Thank you. Where there is doubt, I may bring faith. I get to do that every time I get to share with another alcoholic how the 12 steps have changed my life. Look what God has done. Anything great in my life is because of what the 12 steps and your love and God's love has done for me. That's it. It says here that where there is despair, I may bring hope. And I love doing that. I can still do 12-step calls. There's not enough treatment centers and detoxes for the amount of alcoholics we have running around this planet. That where there are shadows, I may bring light. I had to go get outside help at 6 years sober. I had shadows and they were very real to me. And I had to get outside help. And guess what? I don't have those nightmares anymore. And now I have a foundation that helps people out of those nightmares and gives light, gives freedom to people that have been through the same things I've been through. Thank God. Wow, that I get to do that. That where there is sadness, I may bring joy. It's that language of the heart, right? We all cry together. We bring each other the joy. It's that rule 62, not to take myself too darn seriously, because I certainly can. How can I lighten up on some things? And I'm not asking you to do that if you haven't gone through the steps yet. Everything's very intense. And we understand. But when you hear the laughter and all that stuff that makes you mad, I get it. I get it. It says, Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted. I normally find most of the time, except for people that are a bit narcissistic and just are really bound up, if I'm giving without expecting any return, that it's just a beautiful gift. Some people are not safe to be around. You just can't. But I can love them from a distance. So, to understand than to be understood. I want to understand and I want to love. I want to understand. And so the journey that I do, I continue to do this deal so I can continue to understand, to love than to be loved. I love my dad. He can't see me, he can't hear me, but it's okay. I'm sad for him and I pray for him. And I get to love so many people when I get to share my heart with you. It is for self-forgetting that one finds, it is by forgiving that one is forgiven, it is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen. That is so beautiful. And I'm going to close with this one part, which is the greatest gifts I've received in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, or is that I can look in the mirror and I see a precious daughter of a most merciful God. I take a shower today, and baby, I'm already clean before I get in there. I'm just washing a little dirt off. I can tell you that I laugh from my gut today, and I'm a grateful alcoholic woman. I can get to acceptance. I don't always. I've thawed eggs that I'd frozen before open heart surgery because I wanted to wait till I was with my beloved. And that didn't work out a year ago, and I went pretty dark, and you guys carried me. You guys carried me for a good month. Thank you. I go outside and I hear the birds chirping and I see the butterflies, and I am amazed at my life. My license plate says yay, yay, because that's how my life is. And I have a relationship today. Sex was, I've experienced the worst trauma you can experience with sex. And today I'm engaged to a beautiful, respectful man who would never call me a name, never buck up on me. And I have experienced the most beautiful intimacy that I never thought I could have. And I'm completely in my body. And it's safe. I had to know I was worthy of that before I could allow it to happen. So I am just grateful to you. I keep getting pruned in this deal, and you keep lifting me higher. I go down. Sometimes there's those trials and low spots, but God, if I keep doing this deal, I know God's going to just keep using me and using me as his vessel, and that my pains will be my gains for somebody that's hurting. So God bless you, my family, my tribe. I'm Hilary Roberts, and I am an alcoholic. I have to close with something real quick. I'm sorry, Ollie, I got a little emotional there. Woo! Ollie asked me to do something special. Okay. Hold on, y'all. Get it back. I can't cry and do this at the same time. Okay, Ollie, I'm doing it. Okay, y'all. Almost forgot, Ollie. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace hath brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home, when we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun. We've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Sing with me in your house. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. But wait, was blind, but now we see. I need some Kleenex.
Hi everyone, Nikki Alcoholic. Hilary, that was phenomenal. Thank you for sharing from your heart. My question for you, I didn't realize till I came into this program that I don't believe I'm worthy of being loved, right? Like I didn't realize that. I truly didn't realize that. And every day, like I have to talk to my higher power and ask for that love, and like I'm learning to accept that love. So my question for you is like, did that take a long time? Like when was that like where you could like let go and like forgive yourself and like know like I am loved and I love myself? So that's what I got for you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, precious Nikki. So my sponsor, when I first got my sponsor, with under 30 days, she gave me a prayer, and I'm going to share it with you. So get your pens and papers ready. It's a beautiful prayer, and I say it now, still. God, I pray that I may forgive myself. The first line is, God, I pray I may forgive myself. Period. I pray that I may see myself, comma. I pray that I may see myself, comma, accept myself, comma, ACCEPT, comma, and love myself, comma, as you, capital Y, already have and do. God, I pray that I may forgive myself. I pray that I may see myself, accept myself, and love myself as you already have and do. And I'm going to put my number in the chat. And if you need to get the prayer from me or whatever, I'll put my number in there. Um, and yeah. And I'm on WhatsApp also.
Thank you, Vicki. Christine, please unmute yourself.
Yes, hi. Good evening, family. My name's Christy. I'm grateful for coming on court. Hilary, thank you. Thank you so much, for your spirit, your strength, and your hope. That song you sung, I can only think about my son that I just lost 5 months ago to gun violence, who was shot in the heart. And I can remember him dancing. And that was one of the songs they sung. And I've been in this program for 16 years, and I'm truly grateful. Truly grateful for my sponsor. Truly grateful for doing the work. God moves mountains. I haven't had a desire to pick up that drink or that drug. And I'm grateful for it. Every morning I wake up and I ask him to direct me in this. And I can see that he's powerful. He's very powerful. And, it just touched my heart. You really touched my heart. Because, at the age of 16, I was in another world. I was that type of child that didn't listen to my parents. And, I paid for it in the long run. And I had to forgive the man that raped me. And, I had to just, let it go and let God. And I did it in a good way because I'm sober. And I got to see him on the street and I wasn't scared of him. And it helped me. It helped me to get through this program a whole lot. And I want to just thank you for your experience, your strength, and your hope. God bless you. May you have a blessed day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Just a reminder, it's a question meeting, and if I don't see any hands, I will ask around the room. Pat Olson from Washington State, will you please unmute yourself and you can ask a question?
Thank you. I'm Pat. I'm an alcoholic. I don't even know what to say. I don't even have any words after your share. What a powerful, powerful, powerful story, Hilary. I've traveled a lot, but I've never heard you. I've never had the fortune of hearing you speak before. And what a testament, to the power of love, to the power of forgiveness, to the power of compassion. And you have an amazingly beautiful sponsor. I love her to pieces. And, the healing, I don't know that I have a question. Honestly, I'm really overwhelmed by your share. And I just want to thank you from my heart for that. And I appreciate that prayer you shared. That was just spot on, perfect. For I dare say there's many of us alcoholics out there that that do not feel worthy of love, and unable to give or receive love. That's my experience, and we all have our stories, I mean, some of them are more intense than others, but they're still our stories, and we've all still sustained a lot of pain in our lives, and this program has, I have recovered means that I have been restored to a state of usefulness.
Yeah.
I'm a useful, purposeful person. I have purpose today. So for that, I'm truly grateful. Thank you so much, Hilary. Thank you. So much love I'm sending to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Nicole from Milwaukee. Oh, Yeah, Nicole from Milwaukee, please unmute yourself.
Forgive me, I'm walking. I forgot the plug downstairs, so I'm going to walk down to it. I'm sorry, y'all. Go ahead, Nicole.
Go ahead, Nicole. You you can't unmute? Okay.
Now I can. Hi, everybody. I'm Nicole. I'm an alcoholic. And I think I'm like Pat. I'm just overwhelmed by the energy here tonight and love. And I really don't have any questions. I'd just like to sit and bask in this for a while. So thank you, Hilary, for bringing me there tonight. And I'll pass with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Lorraine, please unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Hi, Hilary. I'm Lorraine. I'm an alcoholic. It's so good to see you again. I always know when I'm going to hear you share that I just, buckle up and get ready to be, transported. And but I never heard you sing Amazing Grace at the end of your share. Thank you so much for that. And I really identified a lot with what you were sharing tonight about your father. I'm going through a really intense thing with family. And the same kind of thing, like it's just at some point it gets to the point where, I'm in my first year of recovery. March is my birthday month. And doing those steps. And, it's so interesting because, I invite God into my life and say, please heal me. And I do these steps and I'm in recovery. And so all those areas where I need that healing start coming up so that I can take another look at them, And so I realized I could be sitting here thinking, oh my God, this is such torture. Or I could be saying, thank you for answering my prayer, for bringing this stuff up and throwing it in my face and my heart and my soul so that I can choose again, so that I can choose differently, so that I can walk away and not put myself in this position anymore to be hurt so much by people who are supposed to love me. And my sponsor said, stick with the people who are trying to love you instead of the people who are trying not to love you. You have to go where you're celebrated, not tolerated. And you have a new family now. You have a tribe. And, and I reach out to the women in my life that I've met in this program this week, and the strength and the beauty and it's so remarkable. I have to pinch myself every day, like that this is my life now, that I get to call Hilary, because I've got your number and I've messaged with you a lot. I get to call her up and say, hey, what do you do when? So speaking of which, what do you do when you get in a loop? You're in the loop. It keeps playing in your head, and you've made popcorn and you're going to sit down and sit back and watch it all over again and go through it. And, I know to pray. I know to write out a 10th step. I know to read it to somebody. I know the logistics, but is there something that you do when that loop happens, when you're talking to people who aren't in the room and you can't get out of it?
Yes. First of all, one of the things my sponsor would say to me in the beginning, where are your feet? Because I was real big on, how I could have handled the conversation before, how I was going to handle it if they said this. I'd have a whole thing going on, dialogues all over the place. I was so mad that I didn't do a comeback with my dad at that time. And so another beautiful thing is, like with little kids, when you see a little kid flipping out about something, you give them something else, you distract them with it. So what I do is, and that's kind of how we do the next right thing. And courage is fear that has said its prayers and takes the action, and so for me, that's my belief. That's what I was taught by my sponsor. And so there's nothing, I'm doing my inventory. I'm doing my stuff. And today I got a lot of stuff done that I needed to get done. And it felt great. I did suffer for a good 3 weeks of processing, but I dug deeper. So I worked the heck out of my program, but I also did self-care. And I helped other people, and you can do fun things to celebrate you, like you would. And I know this sounds like mumbo jumbo, but you know what? I am precious, and I deserve to go laugh at my dogs doing silly stuff. Play with the dog. I don't know if you have a dog or a cat. Get the cat toy. If you can't do that, you know, go to one of the places and go look at the animals in the thing. Unless you're a huge adopter, then be careful. But but there's things you can go do. Take a walk at the park. If it's a windy day, I've thought about flying a kite again. I haven't done that in about 10 years. I mean, what's another thing I can do? I can't, you know, and if it doesn't shut up, Polly tells me to tell it to shut the blank up. So there's spiritual Polly for you. Did I answer it okay? Okay, good.
Thank you, Lorraine. Janine, please unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Janine. I'm an alcoholic. And it's my first time hearing you speak, Hilary. And I just have to say I was, I don't know, I was really touched. And that, I don't know, when somebody touches your heart and touches you and kind of just, when somebody is so vulnerable and has shared the way that you have, I just feel like even though I didn't have a question, you have to reach out to them. And because when you hear God in the presence of other people, you have to acknowledge it. And that I was just thinking, because tomorrow's the International Women's Day, and that so many women in Alcoholics Anonymous have a story like yours and mine, and that to come to that place to where we learn that we are worthy and we are lovable and all of those things that you shared about is one of the amazing healing things that can happen through the 12 steps. And that 11-step prayer like changed my life, and you can hear how it changed your life, you know, seeking to understand. And that forgiveness part, oh my God, it changed my life. It freed me to be who I wanted to be instead of the abuse and everything that happened to me. And so I just wanted to say thank you for, because I'm just, you know, in the time of Zoom, you don't really get to touch the person or hug the person. So it's really only our words and showing up and saying, truly, thank you for, you know, sharing, because I think a lot of us have experiences, but sometimes a lot of us don't heal and we can't share the healing. So thank you so much for sharing with that. And I hope that you have a beautiful wedding day. I just want to say, I thought I would never get married because my parents' marriage almost killed me. And when I got married, I wore a shirt that said "Made with Love." And it's really, you know, so when I look at my wedding picture, that's what I get to see. And it was made with God's love. So thank you so much.
I love that.
Thank you, Janine.
Thank you.
Michelle, please unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Hilary, for your vulnerability and your honesty and just your experience, strength, and hope. You know, I was a person who was very shut down emotionally, and it took me, I was a slow learner too. It took me a long time to find a power greater than myself that I could identify with. And I had like a lot of repressed memories growing. When I was 17 years sober, I remember pulling off the side of the road on my way to work, and this memory came back. And, you know, we all have our stuff. And, you know, I used to compare my stuff to everybody else's stuff because I had the people that came into the rooms that lost children and lost all this, their homes and their families and all that. And I had the old timers tell me I spilled more on the bar than you ever drank, because I got sober in 1975. I just had my 48th anniversary last week. And so I identified a lot with that. But you know, just the ability to be vulnerable and to be, you know, to feel safe enough in a room like this. You know, I lost my husband 3 months ago, and my husband of 50 years 3 months ago, and I have a hard time still. I don't actually have the language yet, the vocabulary. So instead I went out and got myself a puppy to that's gonna straighten me out, right? Typical alcoholic. I don't care how long you're sober. But just thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart that you show women that, and everybody, not just women, but everybody, that we can trust each other and love each other and just be ourselves and be who we are and be who God made us and get through life no matter what struggles we have. And I really want to thank you. I heard you once before, Hilary. Thank you. God bless you, honey.
Thank you, Michelle. I think I will, Becca H, would you please unmute yourself?
Hi, everybody. Becca Alcoholic. That's Ace's head. Hilary, thank you so much. Amazing Grace. It's the song that touches, sit still. It's the song that touches my heart. She still thinks she's a puppy and he's not. Amazing Grace just does it for me. But when you're down, and besides our literature, what do you read that takes you, fills your heart?
Okay, so I am also a member of Al-Anon since 2004, and to me it's the graduate program. It is there's some beautiful things in there and a lot about self-care and minding my own business, and that loving, just taking care of myself. I read, so just to be transparent with everybody, since you asked the question, I read I read our big book. I read the 80 oh, Hilary, come on, think right now. I read 86, 87, 88. I read 3 of the meditations in the Al-Anon program, and sometimes it's both. Sometimes if I don't have enough time, I have to choose one. And then I also like Jesus Calling, and I do like, and you don't have to have this. I don't, whatever background you are, it's great. But I use the Bible app, and they have little plans in there, and I read little plans. Like I'm reading one about trauma right now. And because I got, that situation with my dad, and that was it really set me off, and I didn't know it would. And so I'm just reaching. And those are I've read other books like The Shack or The Brain That Changes Itself, or, I like scientific things too. Dr. Daniel Amen stuff, where he talks about how the plasticity of the brain. Anyway, I go into a lot of things, and I love that stuff. So I'm a seeker, and I try to find things that resonate with my heart, and the things that I feel don't, I disregard. If I don't agree with something I read, doesn't hit my heart and soul, then I disagree with it. If I like it, I highlight it, I make notes, and I save it, and I meditate on it. A thing I really like to do also is I will find one line, whether it's in the big book, the 12 and 12, or one of those meditation readings, or the big book. One of the things I would say over and over again, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And fearful, when they talk about fearful in the big book, which I'm not trying to be controversial here, but it means with reverence. That means I was made with reverence and wonder. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I was made with reverence and wonder. That's all love. And I feel like anything negative and judgmental is not of God. Although even though I have those feelings around my dad right now, which will work itself out in the steps. But I try to find one thing. This man is sick. How can I be helpful to him? By taking my steps. But always finding a sentence that will, I make every day, and then when I do a gratitude list every morning, and there's a gratitude app, and you can add pictures and stuff, and I make quotes. There's a quotes creator. I really get into this. I give myself 30 minutes to an hour of meditation and prayer each morning. I don't have kids, but if I did, I'd have to get up an hour early like some of these wild people that I was always like, how can you do that? Yuck. But like one of the quotes I made today was, and I loved this: one day at a time, I can delight in the splendid person I am becoming. Sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness until it flowers again from within. Galway Canal, Courage to Change, March 7th. How beautiful is that? Okay, thank you. I know this is an AA meeting, but those are the kind of things I do. That's what I do.
Thank you. Bernadette from Petite, New Jersey. We have time for a short question or share. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bernadette, and I'm an alcoholic. And Hilary, I just want to say thank you so much. You make my heart smile. And I was also wondering, like, what a wonderful thing that you can find a little sentence and that repeating the sentence, the same idea. And every day we can look for a new idea or a new sentence. And I repeat it. And when you look in the big book, what's the first thing you go to in the big book? Like, where do you go? Do you go to the Psalms, or do you go to like a gospel reading, or do you go to Romans, or like that? Where do you go in the big book?
It's been different all the time. When I was having the terrors of the night, I read Psalm 91, and I didn't know that scripture was in there. Then when somebody said sex isn't dirty, they told me to read the Songs of Solomon and the way the bride and the groom speak to themselves. Because there was a pastor that was talking about, if you think there's certain things that don't resonate for me that are kind of beat downs, and they don't resonate for me. But for me, like I said, I do these Bible studies on the Bible app that you can download. And then I'm a big fan of Joyce Meyer. Don't get me started. Her dad molested and raped her all her childhood, and her mother turned the cheek. And she is on fire. Now, I want to say something to any of my rainbow friends, or any of my atheist friends, or my Muslim, my Hindu, my Jewish friends. Listen, this is my 11th step. And I sponsor women that are of different faiths. And you know what? I am here. You heard what I called God when I came in. So this is just what helps me. And if you have something from your faith, a prayer you want to give me, by all means, send it to me. I'd love to pray it. So I appreciate it, and I love you.
Wonderful. Thank you for everyone